The decision was made before dawn. Laura knew it before anyone spoke. The house always went quiet when something final was about to happen. No footsteps rushing, no raised voices, no anger, just stillness. She was scrubbing the stone floor near the kitchen hearth when the maid overseer stopped behind her. Not close, never close. Distance was part of the order. "Stand!" Laura stood. Her hands were red, her sleeves were wet, her eyes stayed lowered. The overseer did not look at her face. "You will be married by noon." No explanation, no pause, just a statement. Laura did not ask who, she did not ask why. In this house, questions were a language servants were not taught. She nodded once, that was all that was required. By mid-morning, the city was already loud. New Orleans did not sleep gently. It woke like a machine. Carts rattled. Dock bells rang. Men shouted prices before the sun reached the rooftops. Laura was dressed in a plain linen gown, clean, unadorned, not new. Her hair was tied back, not styled, just restrained. She was not being prepared like a bride. She was being removed. The mistress watched from the upper gallery as Laura crossed the courtyard, arms folded, posture straight, expression untouched. This was not cruelty in the mistress's mind. This was order. A servant too quiet became unsettling. A young woman with no family became inconvenient. Marriage solved both, especially this marriage. The man was already waiting. He stood near the iron gate, not inside, not welcomed, allowed. His clothes were worn past dignity, his boots split at the seams, his beard untrimmed. He smelled of the docks, salt, smoke, long nights outdoors. The city knew his type. A man who slipped between places, between trades, between mercy and dismissal. No one asked his name. He did not offer it. The priest arrived late, as expected. He looked at Laura once, then at the man, then away. The words were said quickly, not careless, efficient. This was not a union to be witnessed. It was a transaction to be completed. When the priest finished, the mistress descended the steps. She did not address Laura. She addressed the man. "You will take her." Not care for, not marry, take. She is obedient, quiet, strong enough to work. Laura felt the words land on her back like weight. The man nodded, once. "I will." His voice was low, unpolished, controlled. The mistress turned to Laura for the first time. "You are no longer this house's concern. No farewell, no blessing, just release." The gate opened and closed. They walked, not side by side, not apart, just forward. The city did not stop for them. People passed, laughed, argued. No one noticed the girl who had been given away. Laura kept her eyes on the street stones. She counted cracks. She had learned young that counting prevented crying. After several blocks, the man slowed. "You may look up." She did, not fully, just enough. He was watching her, not assessing, not claiming, waiting. "I won't touch you," he said. Not as reassurance, as fact. She nodded again. "I don't own a house," he continued. "Not the kind you know." She nodded. "I sleep near the docks." She nodded. "If you wish to leave," he said, "you may." That made her look at him properly, not hope, confusion. Leaving required somewhere to go. She had none. "I will stay," she said. Her voice surprised them both. He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Then we walk." The dockside was quieter than the market, not peaceful, just resigned. The man led her to a narrow space between warehouses where old rope was stacked and forgotten crates leaned against brick. This was where he lived. No door, no lock, no privacy. He spread a cloth on the ground. "You can sit." She did. He handed her bread. He waited until she finished before eating his own. That was the first thing that unsettled her. People with nothing rarely shared. They guarded. He did not. That night, Laura did not sleep. Not from fear, from unfamiliar stillness, no orders, no bell, no voice correcting her posture, just the sound of water against wood. The man sat awake, watching the river. She noticed he never truly slept, only rested, as if listening for something deeper than noise. Across the city, the mistress dined well. She spoke of charity, of order, of removing temptation from the house. Guests nodded. Approval came easily when cruelty was wrapped in propriety. No one asked what became of the maid. No one needed to. The city would learn, but not yet, not loudly, not all at once. Justice, when it came, would not announce itself. It would arrive the way tides do, slow, unavoidable, and impossible to stop. Morning came without command, no bell, no footsteps, no voice reminding her she was late. Laura woke because the river changed its sound. She sat up slowly. The man was already awake. Of course he was. He always was. He had moved the cloth so the wind no longer touched her face. He sat with his back to her, mending something with steady hands, a needle, thread, care. He noticed she was awake without turning. "There's water," he said. "Clean. I fetched it before dawn." She waited for the rest. There was none. No order to wash, no instruction to hurry, no task waiting to swallow her morning. She drank. The water was cold, real. She realized then how often she had been given water that tasted like it belonged to someone else first. Days passed like that, not empty, different. They moved with the light. He went out early, came back late, sometimes with bread, sometimes with fish, sometimes with nothing at all, but always with something for her first. He never asked her to beg, never sent her to kitchens to plead. When she offered to work, he nodded once. "If you wish." She found ways, laundry for dock hands, mending for sailors who couldn't thread needles, sweeping steps where merchants pretended not to see her. She worked hard. Not because she was told, because stillness frightened her. At night they spoke little, not silence from discomfort, silence from respect. She learned his habits. He cleaned his hands before touching food. He washed even when water was scarce. He spoke carefully, as if words cost something. One evening she noticed his boots, not expensive, but well-made, old, repaired many times. "You fix them yourself," she said. "Yes." "Why not replace them?" He smiled then, not wide, not warm, measured. "Because they still work." That answer stayed with her. The docks whispered. They always did. Men noticed him, not as a beggar, as something harder to name. He did not drink, did not gamble, did not borrow. He paid when he owed, left when asked, watched everything. Laura heard comments when she went for laundry. "That man's not right. Too calm. He looks at people like he's counting." She didn't answer. She was learning that silence could be chosen. One night rain came suddenly, hard, violent, the kind that turned streets into rivers. They sheltered beneath an overhang. Laura shivered. The man took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders. It was dry. He had kept it that way. She hesitated. "I'm fine," she said. "I know," he replied. "Still." That was how he spoke. No argument, no insistence, just action. Across the city, the mistress began to notice small things missing. Not objects, certainties. The house felt larger, quieter. Servants moved differently. They no longer flinched at the same moments. The mistress blamed disorder. She tightened rules, raised her voice, punished small mistakes. The house complied. But something had shifted. Fear no longer flowed cleanly. It hesitated. Laura fell ill once, a fever, not severe, but enough to weaken her. The man stayed, did not leave her to find food alone. He boiled water, fed her slowly, kept time without a clock. She woke once to find him counting her breaths. She turned her face away, ashamed of being seen in need. He said nothing, just adjusted the cloth. When the fever broke, she cried, quietly. He pretended not to notice. Later, when she apologized, he looked confused. For what? For being weak. He considered that. You lived, he said. That's not weakness. She had no answer. Weeks passed, then months. The city changed seasons. Laura learned to stand straighter, not from correction, from choice. She learned to speak without apology, not loudly, just clearly. The man watched this with something close to pride, but never claimed it. One evening she asked the question she had been holding, "Why did you agree to marry me?" He did not answer immediately. They were watching ships come in, lanterns swaying, crews shouting. "Because you were not looking for rescue," he said finally. "You were looking for survival." She waited. And I wanted to see who you became when no one owned you." The words frightened her, not because they were cruel, because they were honest. That night she dreamed of the house, but she was standing outside it. The doors were closed, and she felt no urge to knock. The mistress received a letter the next morning. No seal she recognized, no signature, just a notice about property near the docks, purchased, cleared, rebuilt. She skimmed it, dismissed it. Such things happened every day. She did not see the name. She would. Soon. The first sign was work, real work, not scraps, not favors, not mercy. Laura was offered steady sewing near the river, paid weekly, no questions, just cloth, just time, just payment placed carefully in her palm. She walked home slower that evening, not from fear, from disbelief. The man noticed the coins, counted them once, not to doubt her, to understand the pattern. "This came easily," he said. "Yes." "That means someone planned it." Her chest tightened. "Is that bad?" "No," he replied. "It means things are moving." Across the docks, men began to lower their voices when he passed, not out of respect, out of uncertainty. He did not belong to their categories, not poor enough to pity, not desperate enough to control, not loud enough to dismiss. He spoke with captains sometimes, briefly, never in public view for long. Laura never asked. She had learned that answers arrived when ready. The house uptown began to rot from the inside, not physically, structurally. Servants left without asking. Small delays became normal. Food arrived lukewarm. Messages went undelivered. The mistress accused, punished, dismissed. But the replacements never stayed. They whispered. About a woman who had been forced into marriage. About how she walked differently now. About how the man she married did not beg. Fear shifted again. It now pointed upward. Laura passed the house once, accidentally. She froze. The gates were unchanged, the walls still tall, but the windows felt blind. She realized then, she was not afraid. She felt nothing. She kept walking. That night the man asked her something unexpected. "If you were free to choose," he said, "what would you build?" She thought. "I don't know how." He nodded. "That's fine. Knowing what you don't know is still knowledge." She tried again. "A place where no one is owned." He smiled. This time it reached his eyes. Letters began arriving. Not for her, for him, always discreet, always delivered by hands that bowed slightly. She never opened them. But she noticed the change afterward. His shoulders tightened. His silence deepened. One night she asked, "Are we in danger?" "No," he said. "We are approaching truth." That frightened her more. In the mistress's house, accounts no longer balanced. Suppliers demanded payment earlier. Contracts vanished. Partners withdrew. She blamed incompetence, then sabotage, then betrayal. She never suspected inevitability. Laura was summoned to a gathering. Not as a servant, as a seamstress. Her work had been noticed. She stood in a borrowed dress, hands steady, eyes calm. The room went quiet when she entered. Not because she was beautiful, because she belonged. She left with 3 commissions. Outside, the man waited. He always did. "How was it?" he asked. They listened. That's the first step, he said. Listening comes before change. She stopped walking. Who are you? He met her gaze fully for the first time. Someone who got tired of watching good people break. She searched his face, still no excess, still no lies. But something vast pressed behind his words. That night she heard him speaking quietly to someone she could not see. His voice was different, commanding, precise. She stayed still. When he returned, she said nothing. Neither did he. The city shifted again. Property near the docks changed hands. Quietly. The mistress's name appeared on fewer ledgers. Another name appeared more often. Eric. She read it once, twice. Her breath caught. She had never asked his name. He had never hidden it. In the morning, she placed the letter before him. You should have told me. Yes, he said. I should have. Why didn't you? Because I needed to know you would stay even after. After what? The truth. She sat. The world felt suddenly fragile. Tell me. He did, not all at once, not dramatically, piece by piece, wealth, disguise, a test he no longer believed in. He watched her face, waiting. She listened, then asked one question. Did you ever own people? No. Did you ever use fear? No. Did you marry me as an experiment? No. She nodded. That was enough. The mistress received a second letter that evening. This one carried a seal she recognized. Her hands shook. The city was no longer whispering, it was preparing. The letter was not long, it did not threaten, it did not explain, it only informed. One property transfer, one audit request, one scheduled visit. The mistress read it twice, then again. She rang for a servant. No one came. By morning, the city had adjusted its posture. Merchants who once bowed now hesitated. Carriages slowed when passing her gate, not out of respect, out of calculation. Her name no longer carried certainty. Laura felt it too, not fear, attention. People looked longer, not at her face, at her presence, as if she had stepped into a place that had always existed, waiting. Eric dressed differently that day, not richly, intentionally. A coat cut for command, not comfort. He did not ask her to come. She went anyway. They walked together, side by side. No one mistook their alignment. The building near the river had been empty for years. Now it was alive. Men stood at the doors, silent, alert. Inside, documents lay arranged, not accusing, accounting. The mistress arrived late. She always had. This time, the room did not wait for her. She spoke first, as she always did, with certainty, with dismissal, with memory of power that no longer answered. Eric did not interrupt. He listened. Then he placed one paper forward, not proof, history, dates, names, decisions. He did not raise his voice. He did not look at her directly. The room watched instead. Laura noticed something. No one defended the mistress, not one. They had already chosen gravity. You forced a marriage, Eric said, not accusation. Record. You used authority you did not own. Pause. You treated a person as leverage. Another pause. Those actions have consequences. The mistress laughed, short, sharp, desperate. You? She said. You were nothing. Eric finally met her eyes. Yes, he said, and you showed everyone how you treat nothing. Silence followed, heavy, final. The city did not riot. It recalculated. Contracts were withdrawn. Access was denied. Credit closed its doors. Her name moved from invitations to warnings. She returned home to rooms that felt larger, colder, owned by her, but no longer supported. Laura never celebrated. She noticed instead how bread was delivered to their door, how children followed her laughter, how women spoke to her without lowering their eyes. Change did not arrive loudly, it settled. One evening, The mistress stood alone at her window. The street below moved without her. She understood then, not punishment, replacement. Eric did not take her house. He did not humiliate her publicly. He allowed the world she had shaped to function without her. That was enough. Laura asked him later, "Is this justice?" He considered. "No," he said. "Justice would have required learning." "What is this then?" "Balance." That night Laura dreamed without fear for the first time. No corridors, no commands, just space. The city learned Laura's name slowly, not through announcement, through adjustment, through the way doors opened before she reached them, through the way voices softened then steadied when she entered a room. No one asked questions. They watched instead. Laura did not correct them. She did not explain who she was. Or who she had been. She carried both, carefully. The old quarter changed first. Women who had once scrubbed floors beside her now stood straighter. Not because Laura demanded it, because something had shifted. If one of them could rise without violence, then perhaps the ground beneath them was not fixed after all. A woman approached Laura near the market one afternoon. Older, bent, hands scarred by years of work that had never been named. She did not bow, she did not smile. She spoke quietly. "They say you were made small," the woman said. Laura nodded. "They say you stayed whole." Laura paused. That was harder. "I survived," she said. The woman studied her, then left. But the words traveled. The mistress remained inside her house, not imprisoned, contained. Every room now echoed with what she had once controlled. Servants left. Not dramatically, one by one, with notice, with dignity. She paid them. She had to. Money still moved. Power did not. At night she heard sounds she could not place, not voices, absences, the weight of rooms no longer waiting for her. The house had turned inward. It did not accuse. It remembered. Eric met with men whose names never appeared on plaques. They did not thank him. They did not praise Laura. They recalibrated. Old contracts were reviewed. Old marriages were reconsidered. Old assumptions loosened. Quietly. Laura began to walk alone. At first this frightened her. Then it steadied her. She had never owned her own time. Now it stretched. Unfamiliar. Wide. She visited the river often. The same river near the building where everything had shifted. She stood where she had once felt invisible. Now the water reflected her fully. Not grand, not fragile. Present. A letter arrived for Laura, not sealed with wax, folded carefully, written by a hand that hesitated. It was from a young girl, a maid in another household. The girl wrote only one line. "They say you lived through it." Laura held the letter for a long time, then wrote back. Not advice, not warning, only this: "You are not wrong for noticing." That night Eric asked her if she regretted anything. She thought of the years she had lost, the obedience she had learned too well, the marriage she had not chosen. "I regret believing I was small," she said. He nodded. "That belief is the most expensive lie," he replied. The mistress fell ill, not suddenly, gradually. As isolation settled into her bones, no visitors, no counsel, only servants she did not know how to command. She tried. The words came out wrong. Too sharp, too late. When she heard Laura's name spoken kindly in the street, something inside her cracked. Not remorse, recognition. She had mistaken control for permanence. Laura did not visit her. She did not need to. Justice was not confrontation. It was continuation. The city moved forward. So did Laura. But the past had not finished speaking. Not yet. The secret did not come from the mistress. It came from the walls. A storm tore through the quarter 3 nights later. Not violent, persistent. Rain that soaked stone. Wind that pressed itself into corners. The kind of weather that unsettled old buildings. The kind that loosened what had been sealed. In the mistress's house, a section of wall collapsed, not dramatically, quietly. Behind a tapestry no one had touched in years, a servant found it first, a young man, new. Unafraid of rooms that still carried echoes, behind the broken stone, a narrow space, a cavity meant to hide something small, important, forgotten. Inside were letters, bound with twine, brittle, old, written in a hand that shook but never apologized. The servant did not read them. He brought them to the housekeeper. The housekeeper read one line and stopped breathing for a moment. The letters were addressed to the mistress's mother, dated decades earlier, before Laura, before Eric, before the house had learned how to listen. They spoke of a girl, another maid, young, quiet, promised marriage, promised protection. Instead, disappearance, no accusations, just timing, payments, arrangements, the kind that never needed witnesses. The housekeeper folded the letters back into place. She could have burned them. She did not. She could have returned them. She did not. She left the house instead, carrying the truth like a weight she would no longer hold alone. By morning, the letters had reached Eric. By afternoon, they reached Laura. She read them slowly, not with shock, with familiarity. It was the same pattern, different names, same silence. The letters did not ask for justice. They assumed it would never come. They were written to be endured, not resolved. Laura closed her eyes. For a long time, she felt the pull of something old, not anger, responsibility. The past had reached for her, not to haunt, to finish speaking. Eric waited. He did not tell her what to do. He had learned. Laura asked one question. Is anyone still alive who remembers her? Eric nodded. One. The woman lived near the edge of the city, older than the streets around her. Her memory sharp where her body was not. She had worked in the house once, briefly, then left. Laura went alone, not out of bravery, out of respect. The woman did not smile when Laura entered. She studied her, from shoes to eyes, then nodded. You walk like someone who was taught to disappear, the woman said. Laura sat. Yes, she replied. The woman listened as Laura explained, not the wealth, not the marriage, just the letters, just the girl, just the silence that had lasted too long. She sang, the woman said suddenly. Laura looked up. The woman continued, softly, when she thought no one was listening. They sat with that. She didn't vanish, the woman added. She was removed. Laura felt the words settle, like stones placed deliberately. What would you want done? Laura asked. The woman shook her head. That choice was stolen from us long ago, she paused. But you still have yours. Laura returned home before dusk. The city felt heavier, not darker, aware. That night she made a decision, not to expose, not to accuse, but to build something that could not be hidden. She spoke to Eric, quietly, firmly. I want a place, she said, for women who were erased. Eric did not ask for details. He understood. The house that had once belonged to the mistress was sold, not reclaimed, repurposed, its rooms opened, its walls cleaned, not scrubbed of memory, given function. It became a place where names were spoken again, where work was paid, where no one married without choice, where silence was never mistaken for consent. The mistress was told, not by letter, by absence. Her house no longer belonged to her past, or her lineage, or her control. She wept then, not for the women, for the illusion she had inherited, that power could bury consequence. Laura never returned to that house. She did not need to. The city knew. The walls knew. Justice had not arrived with force. It had arrived with continuity. And the girl who sang softly was no longer alone in the dark. Forgiveness did not arrive as relief. It arrived as weight. The house was open now. Women moved through it carefully at first, as if the walls might still remember how to punish. They spoke softly, worked slowly, trusted no one completely. Laura watched. She did not lead from the front. She learned their rhythms, their hesitations, the way trauma lived in pauses. Some nights she could not sleep, not from fear, from remembering. The past did not knock. It waited, patient. A message came one afternoon, sealed, simple. No signature, just a request. The mistress wished to see her. Laura read it twice, then once more. She folded it carefully, placed it down, said nothing. Eric noticed. He did not speak. He had learned when silence was strength. The city had already passed judgment, quietly. The mistress no longer received invitations. Her name still carried weight, but no warmth. Laura agreed to the meeting, not out of mercy, out of completion. They met in a neutral place, a chapel that no longer held services, stone benches, cold air, a space built for confession. The mistress arrived first, older than Laura remembered, not physically, internally. She did not stand. She did not reach out. She waited. Laura sat across from her, no guards, no witnesses, just two women shaped by the same house, in opposite ways. The mistress spoke first. "I never thought you would come." Laura nodded. "I didn't either." Silence, long, uncomfortable, honest. "I did what I was taught," the mistress said, not as a defense, as a confession. "My mother taught me what power looked like," she paused, "and what women were worth." Laura listened. She did not interrupt. "I thought breaking you would make me safe," the mistress continued. "I thought obedience was proof of virtue." Her hands trembled. Instead, it hollowed me. Laura leaned back, not away, just enough. "You don't need my forgiveness to live," Laura said, "but you need truth if you want to understand what you became." The mistress closed her eyes. Tears came, not loudly, they slipped, unimpressive, real. "I ruined lives," she whispered. "Yes," Laura replied. The word landed, clean, undeniable. "I can never undo that," the mistress said. "No," Laura answered again. Silence returned, heavier now. "What happens to me?" the mistress asked. Not pleading, asking. Laura thought carefully, then spoke. "You live. You watch. You remember. And you never control another woman again." The mistress nodded. She understood. This was not punishment, it was consequence. Laura stood. She did not offer comfort. She did not offer cruelty. She offered closure. As she left, the mistress said one final thing. "I wanted you gone because you reminded me of everything I buried." Laura paused, without turning. "And now," she said quietly, "you'll have to live with it." Outside, the city breathed, unchanged, different. That night, Laura returned to the house. She walked its halls alone, touched the walls, not in fear, in recognition. She stopped in the room that once held the letters. The space was sealed now, not hidden, marked. A plaque rested there, no names, just words. What was silenced here now speaks through us. Forgiveness did not erase the past. It gave it boundaries. Laura slept deeply that night, for the first time in years, and in the quiet. The house rested too. The city did not change all at once. It never does. It shifted in small ways, almost polite. A woman refused a marriage arranged for convenience. Another asked for wages instead of gratitude. A third walked out of a house that had never let her leave before. No speeches followed, no proclamations, just movement. People began asking where Laura had gone, not loudly, curiously. She stayed out of sight, not from fear, from choice. Visibility, she had learned, was a blade. It could cut truth free, or wound those unready to hold it. Eric watched the city from their window, not as an owner, as a listener. "They're talking," he said once. Laura nodded. "I know." "They're asking who you are." She smiled faintly. "That's new?" Letters arrived, unrequested, unanswered. Stories written by women who had never been allowed to write. Some asked for help, some offered thanks, some simply wanted to be heard once. Laura read every one. She burned none. She answered only a few, carefully, quietly. The house became something else, not a refuge, a crossing. Women passed through, some stayed, some left stronger than they arrived. Some only needed one night of silence without fear. Laura did not call it charity, she called it repair. One afternoon, a city official arrived, unannounced, uncomfortable. He spoke in careful language of concern, of stability, of tradition. "You're disrupting things," he said. Not accusing, observing. Laura listened, then replied. "Things were already broken." He frowned. "We must consider the consequences." She met his eyes. "So must I." He left without resolution. The city had begun to understand. This was not a movement to negotiate with. That evening, Eric found Laura standing in the courtyard, barefoot, still. "You're becoming a symbol," he said gently. She exhaled. "I never wanted that." "No one ever does." She turned to him. "What happens when they stop listening?" He considered. "Then you become a memory." "And memories," he added, "change people longer than symbols do." She nodded, satisfied. That night, the house hosted no guests, no letters arrived. The city rested. Laura dreamed, not of fear, of doors opening. In the morning, she made a decision, not announced, not shared widely. She would tell her story, once, on her terms, not as confession, not as spectacle, as record. She wrote it herself, no editor, no witness, no name attached, just events, dates, actions, silences. She sealed it, not for now, for later. History, she knew, listened differently than crowds. The house remained open, but Laura stepped back. Others stepped forward. The work continued without her center. That was how she knew it would last. On the final night before she left the city, Laura walked the halls again, slower this time, grateful. She stopped at the entrance, looked back, not with longing, with closure. The house no longer needed her, and that was the victory. Outside, the city breathed, still imperfect, still alive. Laura took Eric's hand, and they walked forward, not into legend, into life. They left before dawn. No carriage marked with crests, no guards, no farewell crowds, just two figures moving through thinning fog. The city gates opened without ceremony. The guards barely looked up. History often passes unnoticed. Beyond the walls, the road widened, not cleaner, not kinder, just open. Laura felt the weight lift gradually, not gone, but lighter, like a garment finally removed. Eric walked beside her, not leading, not following, matching her pace. They traveled north first, through small towns, anonymous inns, places where no one cared who you had been, only whether you paid fairly and spoke softly. Laura liked those places best. In one village, a baker recognized her hands, not her face. "You've worked," the woman said simply. Laura nodded. The baker smiled and offered bread without asking questions. That was enough. News traveled slower outside the city, but it traveled, distorted, softened, sometimes sharpened. They heard whispers, a household that collapsed without violence, a mistress who lost servants one by one, a woman who married beneath her station and rose anyway. Laura never corrected the stories. Truth did not need her defense anymore. One evening they stayed near the river. The water moved steadily, unimpressed by human consequence. Eric watched the current. "Do you miss it?" he asked. Laura thought, then answered, "No." "Not the power." She shook her head. "I never wanted power." "What did you want?" She stared at the water. "Room." He understood. They did not settle quickly. They did not buy land. They did not announce anything. They observed, watched how places treated the quiet ones, the women who lowered their eyes. the men who were spoken over, patterns repeated everywhere, just in different accents. Laura began to intervene less directly. No houses, no sanctuaries. Instead, she taught, quietly, individually, how to read contracts, how to count wages, how to speak without apology. She did not preach, she demonstrated. Women listened, men noticed. In one town, a guild objected. They said she disrupted balance. Laura replied calmly, "Balance that requires silence is already broken." They stopped inviting her. She stayed anyway. Eric funded nothing publicly. He paid debts privately, fixed wells, bought freedom for laborers without ever attaching names. People never traced it back. That was the point. Years passed, not loudly, not gently, just steadily. Laura aged, not into softness, into clarity. Her past followed at a distance, like a shadow that no longer frightened her. One winter, a traveler recognized Eric, only partially, a rumor, a fragment. "You look like a man I heard about once," the traveler said. Eric smiled faintly. "A lot of men do." The traveler laughed and moved on. That night, Laura asked him if he regretted leaving his world behind. He answered without hesitation, "No." "Even knowing what you gave up?" He met her eyes. "I gained someone who sees me when I am nothing." She reached for his hand and held it. In the final town they stayed long enough to matter, Laura planted something. Not a house, not a school, a rule. Payment before gratitude, contracts before loyalty. Silence never required. The rule spread, not fast, but deep. Years later, when people spoke of the old city, they no longer named the mistress. They spoke of a shift. A quiet turning, a time when women began leaving. No statue marked it, no holiday, only changed behavior. That was Laura's legacy, not remembered, but lived. On their last journey together, Eric grew ill, not suddenly, not tragically, just inevitably. Laura stayed, held space, spoke little. He died as he had lived beside her, without spectacle. She buried him where the ground was kind, no marker, just care. Laura stayed a while longer, then moved again. She carried no wealth, no title, no story she needed told, only room. And wherever she went, silence felt different, not empty, prepared. Time did what it always does. It moved, without permission, without memory. Laura did not count the years after Eric's death. She measured time differently now, by seasons survived, by hands steadied, by moments where silence no longer meant fear. She lived smaller, not poorer, smaller. A room near a chapel, a window that faced east, a table worn smooth by use. People came, not for stories, not for explanations. They came because someone told them, "There is a woman who listens without taking from you." Laura never asked who sent them. She never asked what they wanted to become. She asked only one thing. "What do you need to understand?" Some needed words, some needed permission. Some needed to hear that what happened to them was not their fault. Laura did not fix lives. She returned ownership. Her hair grayed, her hands thinned, her back bent slightly forward, not from weakness, from years of leaning toward others. In the city she left behind, the house still stood, changed hands, changed purpose. Children ran through rooms that once echoed with commands. Servants no longer lived there. Workers did, paid, protected. No one spoke the old mistress's name, not out of respect, out of irrelevance. History does not always punish loudly. Sometimes it simply stops remembering you. One evening, a young woman arrived late, breathless, eyes wide. She had been told Laura would understand. The story was different. Different faces, different streets, same shape. Laura listened, nodded once. "It feels like it will never end," the girl whispered. Laura answered softly, "It already has." The girl frowned. "You just haven't reached the part where you leave." The girl stayed the night, left at dawn, straighter. Laura smiled at the door long after it closed. Her body weakened faster than her mind. She noticed, accepted it. She wrote nothing down, no diary, no confession, no lessons. Truth survives better when it travels by mouth. When the end came, it came quietly, as everything important had. A neighbor found her seated by the window, facing the light, hands folded, no struggle, no fear, just completion. They buried her near the chapel, simple, unmarked. No one made speeches, but people came, more than expected. They stood, waited, left changed. Years later, a child asked who was buried there. An elder answered, "Someone who made it easier to breathe." That was all. And far from that place, in cities she never returned to, something persisted. A pause before cruelty, a question before obedience, a refusal to accept silence as destiny. No one traced it back to a maid, or a marriage, or a house that collapsed without fire. But it remained. That is how justice lasts, not as punishment, not as spectacle, but as a shift so quiet no one remembers when it began, only that the world no longer tilts the same way.